Hello, this is Craig Mertens, Director of Product Education for Inktavo, the parent company of InkSoft, Printavo, Graphics Flow, Sign Tracker, and Clarity. Welcome to the webinar today. We are going to take a deep dive into fundraising stores. We're going to talk a little bit about personalization, and then we're going to talk about product bundling. And if you look at all three of those things in their aggregate, they're all really marketing and sales related. And ultimately, InkSoft is a sales and marketing tool, and it's your revenue generation engine. So if you can learn a little bit about some of the techniques and strategies that you can utilize to maximize sales to your customers, InkSoft is the perfect tool to deploy them. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So I have landed on the InkSoft dashboard, and dashboard, most of you are familiar with how the dashboard works. It's going to show you some basic high-level information about your account. Looks like we've got a lot of open orders. It's our demo account. So our sales team doesn't necessarily go in and clean out these orders. So it just kind of accumulates open orders in here. So if this is a real business, I'd be pretty excited about that. Looks like we've got quite a few proposals. We've got 12 jobs scheduled. Here's some shortcuts to some key areas within the app. Here's all the stores in various degrees of setup that people have been experimenting with. And then here is all the stores within our platform. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the framework of building a store. But before we do that, I just want to talk about fundraising in general. So there's basically two ways that we can charge our customers. Way number one is what I would call wholesale pricing or bulk pricing. Company comes to us, they say, hey, I need 100 t-shirts. You put together a quote, you're going to sell them at a wholesale price. They're going to either mark that up and sell that at retail level, or they're going to pass it on to their, coworkers, their team members, whoever's actually consuming the goods. So everyone's familiar with that. But the other basic strategy around pricing that most of our customers are using is what we call revenue sharing. That's a completely different idea. In a revenue share store, what you're doing is you're paying the customer for a percentage of the overall volume that's being produced. Now, the advantage to you is that you're not getting lined up in terms of pricing, because you're setting a retail price and you're just giving them a percentage. The advantage to the customer is they don't have any risk. You could set up a store. Let's say you're doing DTF transfers. You could set up a store, charge them $100 to set up the store, invest in $100 worth of DTF transfers, which would probably get you, 20 or 30 transfers, put them on a shelf. There's no risk to you. And as these orders are coming in, guess what? You're just pulling those transfers off the shelf, pressing those shirts, and there's zero risk to you, but you get to keep a greater share of the profit. And the way that you're able to keep that greater share of the profit is by making that argument like, hey, listen, you don't have any risk here. You're not having to pre-order goods. You don't have to commit to anything. If you have the wrong sizes or the wrong colors, we can shift that on the fly. And if you're really smart and you're using DTF transfers, or if you're using DTG printing, you can move those graphics around as well. And also with DTF, if you plan out the artwork, you can create the artwork so it works across multiple colors. And so it works lights, darks, and midtones. So that's a really important part about running one of these fundraising programs, because they're literally tailor-made for embroidery and they're tailor-made for DTG and DTF transfers. What about screen printing? That becomes more problematic because in screen printing, we have to cover minimum order quantities to, deal with screens and setup. And we have other variables such as, good for instance, is white underbasing under dark garments. We have to charge more for that. So there's a lot more moving parts in screen printing. And I find that utilizing DTG, DTF, and production processes that are suitable to low or no minimums really is the key to doing these fundraising stores. And I've talked to quite a few customers in the last couple of years, and they've foundationally built their entire fundraising programs around DTF transfers, which is, in my opinion, is a great way to do it. But you have to, have that conversation with the customer up front before you build the store. Let's hop into a store real quick here, and I'm going to go into the InkSoft core, and I'm going to select on stores, and we've got all kinds of fun stores in here. And I'm going to pull up one that's kind of a hockey related store, and we're going to come over here. Wolves Hockey Shop. So the coach could have come to me and they said, hey, listen, we just need to get our uniforms done and we don't have to make any money on this. So I just need you to host the store. Kids come in, we're going to just basically pass those uniforms on at cost. And you're just making it convenient for my kids to buy their uniforms. So obviously that's one way we could do it. And then we could just give them a wholesale cost put that actual cost on the store, and kids go up there, they order their uniforms. Maybe we pad it a little bit for spoilage and things of that nature. But that would certainly be one way to position it. But a better way to position it would be as a fundraising program. And you could talk to the coach or the booster parent and say, hey, listen, we can do that. But you guys are really good. You're a travel hockey team. You guys go all over the country. You got kids playing D1. You got a kid in the NHL. And you guys have a lot of expenses to cover. So let's set this up as a fundraiser. So yeah, on the products that are like uniforms, we can just pass along that cost to your players, so that we're not marking that up. But let's create a whole spirit wear program around the team that we can use for fundraising. How does that sound? Who's going to say no to that? And that's kind of what I'm talking about here, is setting up that framework. In this case, it's kind of a hybrid model where part of it's bulk ordering and part of it's fundraising, but setting up that framework that makes it really super easy for that group or organization, school, team, or coach to buy from you. So this store, let's kind of walk through that a little bit. I'm going to turn my mug off here so we get some full screen. Let's kind of walk through this store here. Very simple store. Unite the Pack, Wolves Hockey. You basically have all the boxes checked. We've got a pretty decent selection of products that are built into this store. So we've got the usual suspects. We got a little hockey beanie. We've got a dry fit performance wear shirt. We've got the kind of the fan jersey here, polos. I think it's a really nicely curated store. Basic athletic shorts, even a duffel bag, hoodies. So we've checked all the boxes here, and then we have a premium lineup over here where we've done some higher end products. They're going to sell at a higher price. And then we've also bundled up some backpacks. We've got Yeti in here. Really nice curated collection. Then we've got some fan gear in here. You'll notice something that's consistent throughout this whole store is the color theme and branding is consistent throughout the store. The graphics all kind of tie in with each other. Some of them are the basic, boring graphics that you would associate with a school logo, but those will sell, like something like this. But also we have some more dynamic, more interesting graphics. But there's definitely a color theme here, so everything looks very cohesive and it flows really well together. And you'll also notice down here, if you go to the very bottom, it says, interested in having a store like this for your school, sports team, business, etc., contact us with any questions and more information. I've got a new customer. So we're also using this fundraising store as kind of a launch pad or a showroom, so to speak, for getting new customers. So think about it. If you were sitting next to somebody at your local sports bar and you're talking to the person next to you, yeah, I just got elected to be the booster club parent for the volleyball team. Great. What are you guys doing for merch? And he says, well, I talked to the athletic director and we don't have a budget for merchandise. So I was kind of disappointed in that. I said, hey, you don't have to have a budget, because you know what I can do is we can set up a store for you guys. You have zero upfront costs. We'll load it with great looking products and great looking graphics, and we'll write you a check every month as opposed to you writing us a check. And best part is you don't have to get permission from the athletic director to do that. All you have to do is give me a thumbs up. And you know what? I'll have something over to you tomorrow with a little proposal, little demo store so you can see what's going on. And then what we'll do is we'll collaborate together and we'll create some great graphics to populate the store. And I'll curate it with some products that we know are really good sellers. And we'll take your input and kind of tailor that, find out a little bit more about your project. How does that sound? The idea and the context here is that, everyone's a potential customer for these revenue sharing stores. They don't have to lay anything out up front. It's something that can be absolutely spontaneous. And then once you create these kind of stores, then you can rinse and repeat, because again, the stores become your showroom and you're able to show other groups and organizations examples of the kind of work you're doing, and it makes you look really professional. And so think about this. If you were trying to sell a new customer and you just were describing what you did, how far are you going to get with them? Probably not going to get that far. And maybe you send them a flyer. They look at the flyer. How many flyers do people get? How many catalogs do they get? I'm probably not going to grab my attention. But if you get their phone number and you text them a link to a web store that's branded with their colors, pre-populated with some products, I think you got their attention. And the thing that you're doing more so than anything is you're making it convenient for them to purchase from you. And that is what it's absolutely 100% all about. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how quickly and easily we can launch a store utilizing InkSoft. And we're going to utilize actually a store template to create this fundraising store. And for this particular fundraising activity. I'm going to create a store for East Boosters. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here in InkSoft and I'm going to go to stores. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the plus button for new stores. And I'm going to click on the plus button. And I have three options for initiating the store. The first one would be just to click getting started over here and then go through this wizard-based process of filling out all the details for the store. That'd be one way to do it. That's kind of the old school way to do it. And once you have your initial store template set up, probably don't ever have to go back and do that again. And by the way, all of these settings that are over here, these settings can be accessed from within the app after you create the store. So you can go into the app in your admin section and change all this stuff. But that's the old process. And you'd put in the store name and the URL and however you're going to do it. And then another way, which is I think one of the very best ways to do it, is to clone a store. And so if I went over here and let's say I already had a store for Central Boosters and I wanted to clone that store. Here's my Central Boosters store right here. And I wanted to see what that store looked like. And hey, I really like this layout. It's kind of perfect. It's got all the right, functionality in it for my store. I might choose to clone that store, bring all those products over, and then do bulk art replacement to take all of the logos that have the Cougars on it, and then automatically swap those out with the same embroidered logo that has East Eagles. So that's another way to do it. And cloning is, I think, a pretty remarkable feature within InkSoft. It's a fairly new feature within the last 18 months, but customers really seem to enjoy it, and I really like it. But let's create a store from a template. And we now have the functionality of store templates in InkSoft, which we added earlier in the year. And what we're going to do is we're just going to try to connect with the layout. I'm not concerned about the colors. I'm not concerned about really the composition. What I'm really concerned about is this going to fit my group or activity? So am I going to be better suited to like a full store experience like over here, or just a simple little fundraising or event store? Or do we want to do a store that's kind of like, has that corporate retail look to it? Or do we want to do a store that's, school and education, or just your basic sports and team store? And let's do a basic sports and team store. For this template, since we're doing a fundraising program, I'm going to select this template right here. So I'm just going to click on it, and then we're going to say East Boosters Seniors, because this is going to be a store for the seniors. And here's my URL. And I'm using an InkSoft domain to do this. So it's going to say stores.inksoft.com/East Boosters. But because InkSoft can forward the store URL to the domain for the school, we could ask them to set up a page and to say, hey, listen, can you set up a page for, eastboosters.org/seniors merch? And we'll direct this InkSoft store into that store. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on create store, and we're going to create that store. And then I'm going to view my store, and then we're going to start localizing the branding. So the first thing that I really want to do while I'm in here is get the branding set up. And I would normally start under store admin, and I'd go over here to the little cog wheel, and I'd go to name and directory, take a look at that, looks good. Contact information, update this with the right person, go to contact information. Something really important to recognize here. This has no value other than the contact information that's going to be displayed on the store. It's not creating an account for that person. It's not going to give them any kind of access to any kind of dashboard or anything. It's just basically storing the data as to who the person that's responsible for this store is with, let's say, the booster group. So there's no accounts being created or any kind of dynamic information in here. Now, this is important because these things will be displayed on the store if I choose to, like the address or phone numbers or things of that nature. Also, you have social media settings. So if you want to input their Facebook or Instagram handles, you can do that. But the thing I'm more interested in is this right here, store branding. And let's save that because we'll change that name to Ryan Martinez. And I'm going to go down here to store branding. So once I'm in store branding, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start replacing the placeholder branding here with actual real branding. So I'm going to go and replace this logo. And I have a whole bunch of store files here for East Eagles. And I just went to that folder on my hard drive. and we have all the logos and stuff, store banner and logo. And I created this little pennant logo. It's actually a graphics flow design that I created. It's a graphics flow mascot. So we'll go ahead and open that up. And then a little icon. What is the icon? The icon is what's going to show up in your tabs of your browsers. So something kind of small, circular works really well. But something that looks like an icon, real tall and vertical and real wide and horizontal would be things that you would definitely want to avoid. So I'm just going to use the mascot right here as my icon. And then what is store preview image? So the store preview image would allow a preview to be generated if you were hovering over an URL in, for instance, Instagram or Facebook, and you're hovering over that URL, it creates that little preview. That's what this is. And I already have a preview image from this that I've used for other stores, so I can upload that. I could create one when I'm all said and done if I wanted to. Just screen grab it and upload it. We give all the pixel dimensions in here. So we've got our basic branding. So we hit save and publish. Anything else I want to do in the store, like any custom notifications or policies, or make it public or private. You can make it private, so it requires a password to get in. Social media links, product display settings. I don't want to display manufacturers or SKUs here, so we're going to turn that off. And then if I have any pickup methods or shipping methods. So in order to enable e-commerce in this store, I have to have at least one shipping method. So I'm going to go ahead and add UPS ground, and I'm going to add US Postal Service priority, and I'm going to take priority postal service as my preferred method right there. And if I wanted to add a pickup location, I could do that, and custom checkout settings. One thing I'm going to do on here is I'm going to add an abandoned cart email. So if somebody puts something in their cart, and at 1 day, 3 days, and 5 days, I'm going to have them automatically send out a, hey, reminder, you got something in your cart. I can actually go and click on this and edit that template just specific for that customer. And I could even put a promo code in there so that they could get a discount, like say 5% if they complete their order. So we're going to save that. And then let's get our store set up. So in InkSoft, most people are familiar with how to configure a store and make edits, but I'll make one kind of bold statement. Good stores have good banners. And honestly, you just don't have any excuse now to have great banners, because even with a free Canva account, you can grab a free Canva account, go in there, they have a zillion banner templates, and you can very easily create a template that could be localized across, like your school template where you just change out the clip art. Super easy thing to do. But what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to start to localize the color scheme. And you notice this right here, it has the old logo in here. If I click on this particular object right here and just click on edit, you'll notice the placeholder logo is coming over. And if I click on remove, watch what happens. That pennant gets put in there automatically. Now, I might not want the pennant in there because maybe I have that in my banner. So I do now have the ability to turn that on or off, which is nice. The other thing I can do over here is over here on this particular module right here, I'm going to change that to that navy blue, and it's pulling in the colors from the banner, because when I uploaded the logos, it created the banner colors right here, which is nice. And over here, background color, we're going to leave that navy. That's centered, looks good. And then we're going to go over here and start working our way down through the different modules in here. So over here, I'm going to go ahead and click on edit. Am I crazy about this font in here? Not super crazy about it, but every font, you've got a lot of font options in here in InkSoft. So, fonts really make a pretty significant difference in the way your site looks. So I could go over here and change that to Roboto. I can go over here and, have a tremendous amount of latitude over how this looks physically. So what I'm going to do here, though, is in this banner, I'm going to remove this banner, and I'm going to upload a new banner because I created a senior banner right here. So we're just going to click on that senior banner and add that right in there. I could add another banner because I could turn this into a banner that actually rotates. But for this fundraising store, I just want this one banner. I don't want to upload another banner and have it be, rotating. If I did, I would just click on add banner and upload that other banner. But for here, we don't need to do that. So we've got just our base banner right here, and we just went ahead and set that up. So see, looking good. Could add a gradient effect to it. Doesn't really help. I don't really like it there. But if it's just like a bright photo, that's something you might do. Rotational interval. It's just one banner, so I don't have to worry about that. And what background color means is if the banner doesn't quite cover the entire area, it's where the borders would be. And a lot of times people just leave that as white or a complementary color. I could make that a different color, but I created this banner so it actually you'll fill up this entire space. And that varies depending upon screen resolution. So that's going to change a little bit as well. But I think we're coming along pretty nice here. Let's keep working our way down. Here's our fundraiser right here. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this fundraiser because we're going to add a new one in here. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. And I'm going to remove it. And I'm going to add a component. Components basically are preset objects for that web page, and they all have their own kind of smarts to them. So every component has different values that you can adjust, whether they're visual or in this case, we're going to add a fundraising component where we can actually modulate the type of fundraiser it is, the dates, all that kind of fun stuff. So I'm going to go over here to store components, and I'm going to click on fundraiser style number 1 right here. And that fundraiser is going to have a countdown timer and funds raised. But we're going to talk about why that's important, because we can be fully transparent with that customer and say, hey, listen, we are going to give you a percentage of every sale that comes through here. And guess what? You are going to be able to raise money off this. And then I'm going to send you a check at the end of the month. How's that sound? Well, that sounds great, especially if you're a parent and you've been, selling cookie dough and wrapping paper and all these other assorted fundraising products over the years. Getting a check at the end of the month and not having your kid have to go out there and hustle seems pretty attractive. We're going to click on edit. I'm going to play around a little bit with the colors. And so the color over here, we're going to make that navy, and I'm going to leave the white text in there. And then what I'm going to do, we could put a fundraiser image in there if we wanted to. If I had an image set up, that would be behind there, so it wouldn't have to be a straight background. But the one thing that I do want to do here is go into goal setting and set this up. So let's talk about this for a second, because there's lots of different ways to do this. If you think about it like this, and you're assuming all the risk, right? Customer's not assuming the risk. You're assuming all the risk. Then they're not going to earn as much on that versus placing a bulk order where they're committing to 200 units. So let's say they commit to 200 units and they're getting a t-shirt for $8 or $10. But in this case, we're setting the retail price. So that retail price might be $25, or if you want to give them a good deal, it could be 20 or even 15, but your costs haven't changed. Now, what has changed is you've assumed some risk because you don't know how well this is going to perform. And so one of the things that's really important when you're doing these stores is to have good graphics in them, because if you have a good graphic, the store will perform better. And you have to be kind of straight with customers about that. If they, have I call the brother-in-law graphic, hey, my brother-in-law produced this, he's a graphic designer, and you look at the graphic and the kids aren't going to relate to it all, you have kind of a responsibility to tell them that. And I think the best way to do it is let me show you some things from some other sites that have worked really well. So that's just kind of a polite way to say, hey, your art's not that great. But in terms of your sales goal, we've got a couple options. We could just keep track of it. It could be open-ended. We could have a total number of units where, our goal is to sell 300 units, and that's showing the progress bar. And then we could have a financial goal. We're going to pick a financial goal right here, and I can do it as a fixed amount or a unit goal. And I can also do it as a percentage. So I could go over here and say amount per unit or percentage of profit. So where's that profit coming from? The profit is coming from the individual product and the cost basis that you've given that product within your InkSoft. And you can go into that product and you can adjust your cost basis at any time. So for instance, if you wanted to set it up so it was a percentage of gross, what you could do is you could just go into the product and set the product up to 0.01 cent, a penny. That's the minimum value. And then set the percentage of profit to 5%. And that will work out to be 5% of the gross price. or you could set it up to be 20% of profit. You control the cost figures. So that's kind of how, one way you can do that. But I think a more customary way that would be done on a product like this store is just going to be a bundle. We might do a bundle and we might do some individual products, probably do both on this store. It would be a set amount per unit. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to say, hey, amount per unit. We're going to kick in $5 a unit, and we're trying to raise $2,500. And the fixed amount, we're going to say, hey, for everything that's sold on here, every unit that's sold, you're going to get $5. And we could disable the store once the goal is met. I don't think you'd want to do that. I think you'd want to keep that going, see if we can go a little bit above and beyond. But one of the things you can do at the fundraising store is you can set up tiers. So you don't have to pay it out like this. You can always run a report and pay it out on a report. That might be a better way of doing it. If you're not doing that, then you have to remember to go into the store at the end of the month and reset the progress if you're paying out monthly or you're paying out for a program. So it's kind of up to you. My inclination would be to actually run a report and tell the customer, hey, listen, if we get past $2,500, everything from $2,500 to the next tier, which is $5,000, I'm going to pay you $6 a product. Everything from $6,000 on up, I'm going to pay you $7. So you can set up tiers, and by running reports, you can, create that calculation, just bring the report into Excel, set up the formulas. You just throw it into ChatGPT and upload the Excel file and say, hey, can you figure out what I owe this customer? Here's the formula. I'll just do it for you. Works great. I'm going to go ahead and set that up. We're going to go ahead and hit next. This is what the fundraiser is going to be all about. And I'm going to say, so they have an alumni foundation. It's for alumni that were, kind of fallen on hard times, and we use that to boost up the alumni. So we can have whatever cause we want, we can put in there. And then we're going to set an end date so that we get that timer. I think that's important because otherwise it's open-ended and people will just let it go forever. So we're going to set the end date to May 16th. It's not going to stop me from coming in and, extending that. I can certainly do that. And if you close it just for a little time and then you reopen it and send out a little messaging around that, you'll see a boost to sales. So we're going to go ahead and hit done. And there's our fundraiser right there. So this whole object right here, so we'll get rid of it. And right here, don't really need that. I'm probably going to add my own products here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I'll leave this 3 up here. We'll leave that up here for now. And then again, down here, I'm going to change the color here. We could go with navy again down here. And then I'm going to take this object and I can either hit the up arrow to move it up, or I can just drag it. I think it's just easier to drag it. We've got a really simple little store set up here. And now it's time to load it with product. And before we do that, we should hit save. So we are going to go ahead and hit save. And then what we're going to do is we're going to load it with product. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to come over here to store admin on this particular store. If we go into add products, I have all kinds of neat little things that are already pre-populated. And I actually set up a product bundle a little bit earlier, and we can talk about that in a second. But let's go ahead and set up a fun little hat design. So let's see, I'm just going to type in snap, see if we can get a snapback hat in there. Yep, we do. There's a little trucker hat right there. And I'm going to change that to maybe navy and gray. I think that would look really good. Navy and gray, looking good. So we've got our Richardson snapback hat. We're going to hit upload. And I'm going to upload an embroidery file. And here's some DST embroidery files in here. And I have a seniors design that I did. So let's upload that. So this is a DST file. It only tracks color changes. It doesn't track colors because DST files are fairly primitive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about some colors here. And the background, I'm going to go with kind of a navy blue, which is going to look pretty good. There's the background. And then this right here, we're going to do a gold. Do that gold rush right in there. Ooh, looking good. And where the Eagles is, I'm going to do that in a white. And then where the seniors is, I'm going to do that in that gold again. So what we're doing is we're assigning thread colors to Madeira. Now I could switch this over and this could be from Robinson Anton or Gold or Ice Cord or whoever I wanted to use it. So we'll go ahead and click on upload, then we'll select it and we'll throw that in the hat. Now, bear in mind, you're not going to have a lot of latitude in sizing the embroidery file if it's a DST, because it's a fixed size, because we can't make DST files bigger or smaller without causing sewing problems. So it is scaled at this point to the hat. Workaround for that is if we had a PNG file of a rendering of the embroidery, then we'd have more latitude. But I think that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and create that product. And we'll go to product details, and we're going to add a price. And, you know, if we want to give them a little bit of a deal, $25 is a really pretty good deal in here. On a revenue share, you could probably do that, because your net cost on this is going to be probably around $7 or $8. And if you're only paying them $5 a cap, you're doing pretty good. So we'll do that. And then we'll create another product. And this other product is going to be a senior t-shirt. And we'll just go with the 5,000 t-shirt. And I'm going to stay with Ash, and we're going to upload another file. And I'm going to upload a vector file. So let's see if we've got a seniors vector file in here. East Eagles. Yeah, we do have a seniors file right there. Hopefully it's the right year. This file's a little bit old, so it's probably last year's file, I'm thinking. These are probably all 24s. So we'd go and update those files for 25, but you guys get the idea. Looks really good. Great product. We want to make it a good value. So let's make that $20. That's a pretty darn good deal for the user, but let's upcharge the bigger sizes. So 25 and 25 for the doubles and triples, and then 30 and 30 for the 5X right there. Done. Finish. And we've got those two products, but I want to do a bundle. So I also want to have a product bundle in here. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to add products, but I've created a bundled product already. And that bundled product is composed of a Richardson hat with a patch and a different t-shirt design. And we'll talk about how I created that in a little bit. And I'm just going to go in here. In order to use this bundled product, I'm using the Rapid Product Creator, so I've got to do something a little bit tricky, which is I do have to add a graphic to it in order to go to the next page. So what I did is I just created a little graphic. Use Eagle store files. That is a silly little white box. So in a sense, I'm kind of tricking the software here. And I'm going to take that white box right here, and I'm just going to move it over here. Nobody's going to even know it's there. And that's going to allow me to go to create product. And then what I'm going to do is go to product details, and we're going to make that bundle $40. So they get a little bit of a discount. And we'll hit finish. But we have our products in here. We're ready to go. Basically, we just need to add them to the store. So I'm going to go over to Style Editor, and we're going to go to Manage Products. And we're going to add. And I think I'm going to put the bundle in the middle. And we're going to hit Done. I'll save and publish that. That's how fast we can do it. So let's talk about the checkout experience. How are they going to get in here and figure out the sizes are for the t-shirt? Here's how they're going to do that. So in the product itself, and I'm going to go to products. So what did I do to create this product? It's not real super difficult. What I did is I came over here and I created a new product, not a new pre-decorated product. I just created a new product, and I called it East Seniors Bundle. We'll just call it there. And then the manufacturer is me, my store. So my main store is Circus Prints. So we're the manufacturer and the supplier. It's just the bundle I put together. There we go. And size chart, we don't need one in there. It's one size. We'll give it a SKU. East High Boosters 01. So that's my SKU. There we go. Put that in there. And then we'll name the bundle. So, and I can put some search tags in here. We'll just call it cap. And I'm just going to create the product. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Then I've got some work to do. I want to go ahead and add an image, or I'll come back and edit all this, but I'm going to show you how to add an image. I'm just going to go over here to colors and images, and I'm going to upload the image. I just went into CorelDRAW, and I created a little collage with the hat and the t-shirt. Create a little mock-up here. Graphics Flow art. I did the mock-up in InkSoft. in the Rapid Product Creator. And I just screen captured it and made a collage in Corel and just saved that as a PNG file. Don't have to really worry about any of this other stuff. Pricing right here. It's going to be a fixed price of $40. Let's save that. Print regions. This is important. We have to have a print region on here in order to be able to load the product in the Rapid Product Creator. Even though we're not going to do anything other than add that little square, we still need to do that. And so I'm going to add a print region. I'm going to call it front. And then the width is going to be adult, 12 inches, 12 inches. I'm going to say draw region so I can make the region the entire size of this little box here, because that's where I'm going to hide that little white thing. I'm going to hide that little white thing right here. So that's the little trick. So we're kind of doing what you would call a workaround here. Got all that stuff set up. I'm going to go back to general and we're going to finish everything else up. So we got our description, our tags. It's all set up for one size. I don't really need a size in there. I'm going to go ahead and assign this to a store. So I'm going to assign this to the East Boosters Senior Store. I'm going to make sure it's active. I'm going to give it some categories. So we're going to have one category is going to be headwear. And then the other category is just going to be straight up old t-shirts right there. Don't mark pre-decorated because we won't be able to use it in the Rapid Product Creator. We're not going to allow it to be designed online. We don't want it showing up in the InkSoft Designer. We don't need any personalization options. Don't have to change any of this. I could put a minimum order of one, and then I'm going to hit save. And it says it's been saved successfully. Now, what that means is that it is going to be assigned to that store. And if it doesn't save successfully, you're going to get a message and probably going to say you didn't assign a print region is the most likely message. So if you don't assign a print region, it's just not going to show up in your store. Let's go over here and go to our store again. There it is. And let's go ahead and add that product. So we're going to go back to Style Editor. First things first, we're going to add it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that product. We'll add a new one back in. And so we'll just say add it. Here's our bundle. We're going to do that little white trick again. Create it. Price it. We're just going to do one price. Finish. So here's what we have to do. We have to go into the product now. Right here in the product. And we need to go to personalization. And we need to add a personalization field. That's how we're going to collect the sizes for the t-shirt. We don't have to collect the sizes at all for the cap. It's a one size fits all. We could do that. But I'm just going to add a custom field. It's going to be a multiple price dropdown. I'm going to make it a required field. I'm not going to add a price to it. We're going to call it pick a t-shirt size. Select the size for your t-shirt in the bundle. There you go. And then here's your field choices. So small, enter, medium, enter, large, enter, extra large, enter. I'm going to do XXL. So I'm only offering through double XL, but I'm going to roll in the double X charge into the rest of these. That way I don't have to create a separate field. So we're going to hit create, and then we're going to hit save and publish. And then let's feature this product all by itself. So I'm going to go into the Style Editor, Store Components, Featured Product, Single Layout, Manage Products, add it, hit done, probably move it up so it's like the thing I really want to promote, hit save and publish. And there it is. So let's take a look at the checkout experience now. So when they select it, select t-shirt size right here. So they can just go in and say, I just need a small. So that's why we need to use the Rapid Product Creator to create this product. Can't do it through a pre-decorated product. And so we have to do that little trick where we put the little white box in there. And then this is where they would select the sizing, and the hat is already one size. So that makes it work really easy. So that's just an easy way to create product bundles in InkSoft. And I want to talk a little bit about personalization now and some of your options for personalization. In a product, we can add a personalization field to this product. So in here, this could just as easily be a personalization field. So if I go into the store right here, and I'm going to go to my other East store, I'm going to show you an example of some of the things that we've done. is in this store, the way I'm handling personalization is by actually utilizing the InkSoft designer. If I click on this shirt and I have the ability to say dad right there, make it bigger, make it smaller, put it right in here if I wanted to, text outline, make it white. So could do that if I want. Need to move it up in the object order. So if we do that, it's got to be above the E's. We'll go ahead and click on change product size. And then Martinez. So let's say I have a vinyl cutter and I just want to make this a single color, or I had a DTG printer. You could give the customer the latitude to do that. Pretty cool. They save it. And let's go ahead and save this one. And this is another great use case for graphics flow. So really what I'm looking for is a graphic that's got a couple numbers in it. And so I'm going to go over here and just click on that. And I'm going to hit customize. We could go over here to where it says athletics. And we could turn all of that off. Actually, we could turn the tail off. We can turn all that text off, actually, if we just want the number. So I'm just going to take the number here, and that's all we're keeping. And actually, we're not even going to use the layered effect here. And I'm going to change this right here to that gold. And then I'm going to change the white to that navy. So I'm going to go over here and just, hey, save design. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to download a PDF file. So I'm just going to download a PDF file because this is what I'm going to bring into InkSoft. And we'll just go into InkSoft. We'll go into our store. We'll go into admin. We'll go to add products. We'll pick that 5,000 t-shirt again. And then on the front, we'll just put that, we'll put this senior's design on the front right here. And then we can add a back. So in the back right here, we'll go ahead and upload that other design. So go to downloads. Here it is right there. It's vector, which means if I want, I can change the colors on here, do colorways. Yep, looks great. Create the product, price it. This is premium because, you know, we're having to add that name and number. So we're going to make it a premium and let's add another $5 for double and triple. And then we're going to add a little bit right here for the 4 and 5X, hit finish. So what I need to do is add a personalization field to this. So what I'm going to do is we're going to add a personalization field, and we're just going to call this field a text entry box. We're going to make it required. And then the field label is going to be number. Insert your class year. And we could have a minimum character count. That's optional. We don't really need that. And we're going to hit create. Save and publish. Go back to the storefront and we'll add it. Style editor, store component, featured product. And then they just have to put their number in so they can see the different views. They're going to pick their size out and then they're going to put their number in here. The difference is they're not going to see it change on the screen. And I think taking that extra time to actually set that up in the designer so they can type their own number in, I think that's actually a really, really clever thing to do. And it's also a differentiator. Any e-commerce platform that's designed for our industry will have that functionality of being able to add personalization fields. Really only one that I know of, which is us, that can do that, create a number that can be name dropped and the customer can visualize it right there in live. And I think it creates a better experience. I think it justifies a little bit of a premium. But the thing you have to be aware of is you have to have a process that's conducive to being able to do that production. So if you set it up as like a embroidery on the back strap of a hat and you have an embroidery machine, you can do that. If you set it up as a vinyl graphic and you have a vinyl cutter, you can do that. If you have a DTG printer, you can do that. Now, if you're doing GTF, you could do gang sheets. So if you did a whole bunch of these, you could put every number on a gang sheet or a roll and order by the roll. You could do it that way. But I just think this is a standard way of doing personalization. But this way is just so much cooler. Just to be able to click on it, have the user go in and change their name, see it live, and get to experience it that way. those are the things I wanted to cover today. I wanted to take a deep dive into fundraising, stores, the framework, how we build out a store, how we populate it with products. I wanted to talk about bundling, how we can use kind of a workaround technique to create product bundles in InkSoft, and then also a couple different approaches to personalization. Thank you so much for joining me on InkSoft Academy, and we will see you on the next one.